أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, respected brothers and sisters and brothers, and all the creatures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, however you would like to be addressed. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your deeds, your prayers, your fasts. Tonight will be my final night with you, and it's been a wonderful experience to see the believers over here, to be able to sit down with you and converse, even though mostly it was a monologue, but even the individuals I was able to speak with after the lecture. Alhamdulillah, it's good to be together in one group, as one community. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran emphasizes the need to be bonded together as believers. It's not good to isolate yourself. Yes, we have our differences. We might not get along with one another all the time, but that shouldn't be an excuse for us to reject each other. At the end of the day, we're all holding on to the rope of faith, the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, believing in God, believing in His messenger. You might differ with another person. You might have but you also are connected to that individual. So always try to maintain a relationship with those who are believers like you. What we were taught by the society, and the Imams were a minority at that time. The Shia, the followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, were a minority for the most part. And they were asked by their companions, because they believed that they were following the righteous path. The companions believed that we are following the wilayah of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. We're on the righteous path, and therefore we don't have to connect with those who are around us. The teachings we have from the Imams is the opposite of this. Whenever they had a companion that used to seclude themselves from their society, even from those who are followers of Ahlul Bayt, even those who were following the Imams and their teachings, they divided the followers into different groups. Some people thought that they believed in the spiritual powers of the Imams, and whoever doesn't believe in that, they'd reject them. They don't deal with them. Anybody who doesn't believe that the Imams have divine knowledge, they would reject them. Not every follower of the Imam believes in these things on this deep level. So the Imams became aware of this, and they used to tell their followers that not everything that you know, someone else has to necessarily be able to know. People are of different levels in this world. We have different capacities. Not everyone carries the same amount of intellect as the other person. Not everyone has the same access to information and knowledge as the other person. People are affected by how they were raised as well in terms of what they receive with knowledge. So the world that we live in now, we notice this being a drastic problem. We live in a world where people have many different opinions. The problem is that we reject these other people for having different opinions. A lot of times when I see threads online where people post something and someone comments about giving a different opinion, aggression starts to build up very quickly. Just because that person has a different opinion. And then they remove that person. They unfriend them, they block them, and then they go to their timeline and they start posting over there, screenshots, look at what this person was saying, and then they start looking for support from the people that are in their own circle and bubble. Well, this is not the right way to deal with our differences. We have to be more compassionate, more loving, more caring for one another. Maybe that person reached that level of understanding due to incorrect premises, incorrect introductions. They were given wrong data, wrong information. Just like you reached the conclusion, they also reached the conclusion. Who is to say that you are the right one all the time? Yes, there is a right and there is a wrong. But that other person might believe that what they believe in is right, but they reach the conclusion in a wrong way. As someone who's a believer, who has been given knowledge, if you believe you're on the true path, then with knowledge comes responsibility as well. Because in the Islamic understanding, the more knowledge a person has, the more elevated they are existentially. You're on a higher level. The more knowledge you acquire, the more your soul begins to expand. The more your soul expands, the more awareness you have. The stronger ability you have to understand the details. You start thinking more sharply. Your soul becomes stronger. And this is why it's very recommended for a Muslim to always seek knowledge, because knowledge is connected to the soul. And with the soul, you're able to see truth and reality. So if you're someone who believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and have acquired a certain amount of knowledge, you were able to reach the truth at some point. Other people might not have been exposed to the same thing that you have. So someone who has more knowledge, responsibility comes with that knowledge is to be passed on. And to be passed on in the correct way, not in a wrong way. If you're more knowledgeable and someone's misguided, you go and you guide that individual. The method of guidance is also very important. There's a very famous principle in Islam called al-amru bil-ma'ruf wa-nahi anil munkar, enjoining good and forbidding evil. A lot of people love this because they think that they can use this to go and police people around, to boss them around. They see someone doing something wrong, they go criticize them and yell at them, and they think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased by my behavior. Why? Because I'm stopping corruption from happening. I'm criticizing the evil. But they don't understand that there are conditions for this to be applied. Not everybody is allowed to enjoin good and forbid evil. The method of doing it is very important. If you say something thinking you're guiding somebody or criticizing them for doing something wrong, and you say it the wrong way, and you push them more towards doing it because now they have a negative understanding of Islam, or they build a negative feeling towards it because of the way you've said it, then you're responsible for their misguidance. Don't think that you're allowed to criticize somebody freely like that. If they're doing haram, you don't have the right to go and yell at them or to insult them or to put them down. You don't have the right to do that. Your right is to act with compassion and mercy. If you think that you advise them and that advice will help them, because some people are at a point in their life where they just can't listen to advice. They don't want anyone to tell them what to do. They have a deeper problem than what you're seeing on the surface. The surface level problem is just a symptom of a deeper issue that they have. So don't think you can just go to people and tell them, stop doing this and stop saying that and stop behaving like this. This is haram and this is wrong and you're going to go to hell. This is not right. You have to use a lenient method. And sometimes you're not supposed to advise at all. The only time you're allowed to advise someone is if you believe that your advice is going to have a positive effect on the individual. That's one of the conditions of al-amr bil-ma'ruf and nahi anil munkar. If there's a possibility that what you say to them is going to push them away from their religion, then you're not allowed to say anything to them. It's haram. And if you push them away, you're going to be responsible for the sins that they commit. So you have to be wary. The more knowledge you receive, the more humble you're supposed to be. Anybody who reads the letter of Imam Ali alayhi salam to Malik al-Ashtar, when he placed him as a governor over Egypt, He sent him a very famous letter. What he emphasized, now that you are gaining power and you have authority over people, now you have to be more merciful towards them. You have to be more overlooking of their mistakes. You don't become stricter when you become a governor. You don't become someone with authority, and therefore now you have the right to go and oppress other people in the name of doing good. No, you're supposed to become more merciful, more forgiving. Similarly, the individual who becomes a believer gets to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That mercy and that love and that compassion has to reflect in your heart even more and more and more. This is why our ulama, when they elevate spiritually, you find that they begin to cry more. Their heart becomes more tender. It doesn't become stiff. If you see someone who is getting closer to religion and their heart is becoming stiffer, then understand that they're getting closer to their ego and not towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most knowledgeable. Being the most knowledgeable makes him the most forgiving, the most compassionate, the most loving. And as mu'mineen, this is what we have to elevate ourselves to. The more knowledge we gain, the more mercy we're supposed to have to other people. And we live in a time where a lot of people are confused. They're bombarded with information every single day. This opinion, that opinion, this is right, that's wrong. It's not clear, it's very ambiguous. You go to the ulama have different opinions. Where do you go to? It's very difficult to acquire proper knowledge. So this should tell us that we shouldn't be so judgmental when it comes to other people's opinions. When it comes to voting in this country, in politics, some people belong to this group and other people belong to that group, and they talk to each other like they're enemies. Well, a lot of people on the other side, they lack the information that you have. You grow up being taught that oppression is a bad thing, that justice is a good thing. And you have a special connection to certain lands. You understand something that the other side doesn't understand. So when you speak to them, you shouldn't speak in a way that expects them to have that same information and that same passion that you have. They grew up with a whole different mindset. They were taught different things. So anytime you have a debate, you have a discussion, especially here, with people who are non-Muslims that belong to other denominations, always keep in mind that they don't have access to the information that you have. Try to teach them. Act like loving individuals. Seneca was a Greek philosopher. And he was sent a letter one time by one of his relatives, asking him about the issue of differences between people and it causing anger. And Seneca was a Stoic. He was asked to give this spiritual advice, this ethical advice, based on the Stoic mentality or philosophy. How do I deal with the issue of anger? Now, of course, Stoics, they're a bit on the extreme side when it comes to the vice of anger. They're a bit extreme. Seneca, for example, was someone who believed that anger should be eliminated completely. Our ulama, they're more in line with the Aristotelian ethics, which says that anger has to be balanced. You have to find a balance. You don't completely eliminate anger, because anger is necessary sometimes. If somebody comes to attack your house and to rob your house, if you don't have any anger, you're just going to sit down and watch that thief come and rob it. You need that anger to get you up. Like, what are you doing? You can't rob my house. If you're completely stoic, and now stoicism is becoming a thing. Everybody's reading about it. And I've seen a lot of memes about stoicism. Of course, they take it on a very surface level. It's a very deep philosophy, and it's very interesting to read about. But eliminating anger completely from your life is going to eliminate the ability to defend yourself. You don't want to become someone who's completely passive. But anyways, that's not what I'm trying to say from his letter. In his letter, he says something that's very beautiful. He advises this individual that asked him, how do I deal with anger? He says, you who knows, who has knowledge of what's right and what's wrong, you have to behave like a doctor with their patients. If there's a patient who's suffering from pain, and this pain is making them scream at the doctor, yell at the doctor, what does the doctor do? Punch them? Yell back at them? Say, oh yeah, you're yelling at me? Watch what I'm going to inject in your body. Is that what they're supposed to do? Of course not. A doctor should have passion, should have an understanding. He knows that this patient is yelling because they're suffering from a pain that they have in their body. If their pain wasn't there, they wouldn't be yelling. Inshallah, yani. Sometimes people are yelling even without their pain. But most likely this pain is coming from this yelling is coming from that pain that they're suffering from. You knowing that they are yelling because of the pain that they're suffering from makes you responsible to be compassionate towards them. Why? Because you're above them in this level. You're more aware. You know that if the pain is not there, they wouldn't be yelling. And it's justifiable for someone to be in pain, who is in pain, to be yelling. They don't mean to be yelling at you. So a lot of people have frustrations. They have pain in their lives. They've been mistreated as children. They've been mistreated by other people. They've been rejected in society. They've been outcast. They've gone through bullying in schools over here. And they grow up with a very rebellious voice. They want to reject everyone's opinion. They always want to stand out. Somebody might be like that. It's your responsibility to speak to people according to their level of intellect and according to their capacity of existence. And as a mu'min, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says you are above other people. Why? Because you have this awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not everybody can have this awareness. This awareness requires an elevation in spirit and soul. So if you're elevated, you have more awareness. When you're dealing with other people, you have to deal with them with compassion and mercy. If that person knew what I know, maybe they would have behaved differently. So instead of criticizing them and yelling at them, let me teach them. Let me try to take their hand and guide them towards what I know. And that requires a lot of patience, requires a lot of understanding. So when you have someone who differs with you in an opinion, on the one hand, you're responsible to try to guide them towards your path in the best way possible. And on the other hand, it's a test for you to test the level of your faith. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, when He talks about the Prophet, He says that وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضْلًا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. If you were someone who was harsh and your heart was stiff, then people would have escaped from around you. But the Prophet, because of his leniency in speech, he wouldn't raise his voice at people. People came with him criticizing him, yelling at him, throwing stones at him, doing everything they can to put him down. Yet the Prophet dealt with all of them with mercy and love. Because he was a messenger, he was a guide. He looked at people as these sick individuals. They have diseases, they have ailments. And the Prophet was a doctor. And this is why the Imam alayhi salam, Imam Ali alayhi salam in Nahj al-Balagha beautifully describes the Prophet. He says what? He was a doctor. طَبِيبٌ دَوَّارٌ بِطِبِّهِ. Specifically, like a very beautiful example. He had the medicine, and he used to go around to sick people, spiritually ill. And he would give each one a prescription to try to help them. Now the doctor can only do so much. They give you the prescription. Now it's your job to take the medicine to take care of yourself, right? And the same thing as believers. We don't have to force people to adopt our opinions. And if they don't, we feel bad for them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala show you the path. So we have to be more patient with each other. We have to be more caring. And when I see online, what's happening nowadays, this idea of immediately canceling people and rejecting them because of differences in opinion, it creates a very egotistic ailment inside of ourselves. Because it says, basically what you're saying is that I have the full truth, and whoever doesn't agree with me is in complete falsehood. You're not even entertaining the possibility of you being wrong. Why do you have the full truth? Who are you? Are you a prophet? Did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send Gabriel to you and he never told us? No. The fact that we are not infallible should always humble us because we might be wrong in what we're saying. There's a lot that we don't know. So try to be patient with one another. Try to have discussions respectfully with one another. Yes, some opinions are very, very, you think they're very stupid, right? Like, I'm not going to say this is a stupid opinion, but according to some people, if you believe that the earth is round, it's very stupid, right? And the other side, I said it the opposite way. The other side says, whoever believes that the earth is flat is stupid. But this is a serious discussion. There's websites, there's people, thinkers, YouTube videos. A lot of hours have been put to prove whether this theory is right or that theory is right. You might think he's an idiot, the one that believes the earth is flat. Like you just have to go on Google Maps and figure out that the earth is round, right? Well, apparently not, because all of these people went on Google Maps and didn't figure that out. So you might think that there's something wrong with their brains. Not necessarily. They might have been basing their opinion on something else that they believe in. It's ingrained in their minds, this conspiracy that these are all trying to trick us, right? So what do we do with these people? Do we make fun of them? Do we criticize them? Do we say you're going to hell? No, you can have a discussion with them. Oh, Allahu A'lam, this is our proof and this is your proof, and that's it. It ends over there. We can continue living with one another. You don't have to start creating neighborhoods. This neighborhood for flat earthers and this neighborhood for round earthers, and start separating yourself. Now, this is a small example, but there are many, many other examples. In terms of religion, people differ in terms of their marja'iyah. This is a Sistani, this is a Shirazi, this is a Khamenei, this is this, this is that. Well, what's the problem if every person follows their own marja'? Even if they have a different opinion. We can live with one another. This is a matter that we're trying to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with. Just like I expect the other person to respect my opinion and my conclusion, I should respect their opinion and their conclusion as well. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. When you go to the Hawza in Iran, you find that there are many, many different scholars there. For every discussion, you find a scholar that adopts a different opinion. Some scholars like philosophy. Others believe the philosophers are going to hell. They have a special place in hell, the philosophers. God has preserved an area for the philosophers, just for them. That's how bad they are. Some people believe in arfan. Some ulama say arfan, spirituality, mysticism, is the best path. Others believe that mysticism was taken from India and other countries, and these people are not even Muslims. You have so many different opinions in the Hawza. And if this tells us anything, it tells us that the possibilities of knowledge are so many. If our ulama are differing in this, and they can coexist and live with one another, then why should we be the ones who are judging each other and rejecting each other on this basis? When it comes to the marja'iyah, we have to understand that we have to respect other people, even if they believe in a different marja', even if they follow in a different marja'. It's not a problem. To go back to the hadith of the Imam says that there are some of you who have knowledge that others don't have. And this is a very closed circle, because not most people go towards this deeper knowledge and greater understanding. Not everybody does. Most people are okay with the superficial knowledge. Some people, they go deeper. They seek deeper knowledge. So this is the smallest circle. If you expand that, the Imam says there are those who don't know what you know. and they are followers of Ahlul Bayt. They're lovers of Ahlul Bayt. You carry respect towards those individuals. You marry them, you live with them, you visit them when they're sick, you ask about them, you coexist with them. And then there's a larger circle. Those who love the Imams but don't follow them. The Imam says those are still good people. You also live with them, but they just have not been granted as much knowledge as you have been granted. Expand that, you have the general Muslims that don't follow Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. And the companions used to ask the Imams, what do we do with these individuals? And the Imams used to tell them, you visit their dead, you visit their sick, you go and walk in their funerals, you live with them. They're Muslims at the end of the day. And us living here in America, we expand the circle even more. There are those who are non-Muslims. We're responsible as individuals to coexist with them, to speak to them, to reach out to them, to live with them normally like human beings. One issue that we have here in Dearborn is that we're really closed up in a way. In one sense, it's very beautiful because it creates a strong bond in our community. We have our own identity over here. And it's very beautiful that we have this chance to exist like this. But just because of that, it comes with a negative side as well. We don't learn how to deal with people who are outside of the circle here. So in one sense, we appreciate the blessing that we have. In the other sense, we should be able to open up and speak with others. One issue is the converts that we have. These are people that convert to Islam and they don't feel like they belong to a society. This is a problem. A lot of converts complain about this. They come to a masjid, they come to a center, and they feel they're not accepted over there. Because people are usually gravitating towards people that they're more familiar with. If they're from the Lebanese community, they're more with those people. From the Iraqi community, they're more with those people. And the converts don't find a place in these communities and centers. A lot of converts feel alienated. They're not accepted. Why? Because culturally they don't behave the same way. So as a community, it's our responsibility to bring these people in, to care more about them. If we're unable to do that, it shows that we're enclosed in our own bubble. And this is a problem. We shouldn't be limiting ourselves to our culture only. A person who is a Muslim deals with everybody around them on the basis of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not on the basis of their culture and their background. And it's a very sad reality when we see this, because a lot of people have converted, they come and they complain to me, and they end up creating their own circles outside of the general Muslim society, the convert group, the convert circle. Why? Because they don't feel that they're being accepted by the Muslims. So being a Muslim, you have to be loving towards other people, you have to be inviting, and you have to transcend the limitations of yourself. Living in the world that we are in right now, it's a challenge for all of us. Every one of us is going through their own issues. Yes, the problems are many. The diseases are many. The spiritual issues are many. The mental health issues are many. Living here together on this earth, we share this land together in this very, very vast universe. The least we can do is to love each other and to care for each other. If you see someone else suffering, reach out to them, try to help them, because you can feel their pain as well. You suffer like them. You know that this is a challenge for all of us. So the issue of compassion and love should be spread more and more, instead of going the other direction, where we're more selfish, we're more egocentric. If you see any believer criticizing someone else, you tell them to calm down, to treat them well, to not use this kind of language towards them, to not push them away. If everybody does that, we all live in a better society. But every time we have differences, I don't want to talk to people anymore. I wish I can never see anybody. We seclude ourselves. And this is not healthy, because now it's you and yourself, and it creates more problems for you. So as individuals who live in the society here, And we're in the month of Shahr Ramadan. This is a wonderful opportunity for us to reach out to those who we have wronged in our lives. Try to change yourself during this month. Try to reach out to people that maybe you haven't reached out to before. Think of people that you know in your life that you haven't talked to in a while. Give them a call. Ask about them. Sometimes a person is going through a very big challenge. If they receive one call from you and you ask about them, that will change their whole state to the better. Try to do something like that. If you were in a dispute with a believer, be forgiving this month, because you want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive you for your sins, for all the mistakes that you've done, and we've all done many mistakes. If we want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us, then we have to be forgiving towards other people. Use this month to amend the differences and the problems that you have with others. Call someone and say, look, we ended on a bad note. We said things that were inappropriate to each other. I want to apologize on my behalf. I want to put this behind us, and we can start a new page. Forgiveness is very important. Compassion is very important. Whenever you deal with somebody, always keep in your mind, how do I want them to deal with me? And based on that, you deal with them. An even better equation, how do I want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to deal with me? How would Allah behave in this situation? And you imitate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So knowledge gives us that responsibility. We're supposed to acquire more knowledge. And the more knowledge we acquire, the more responsibility we have towards other people. The closer we are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more responsibility we have towards others. Just because you're a believer doesn't mean you have the right to see yourself as above others in an arrogant way. No. You become more loving and caring for others. These were just some final words that I wanted to say. Saying this community that we live in, it's a beautiful community. Beautiful believers, wonderful individuals, full of passion, full of great potential. And each and every one of you is on a journey in this world. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us, and we all share a similar human experience here. We came to this earth, we were born here, and we're on a journey together. Let us live together with harmony. Let us live together with love and care, and remove the grudges that we have. This is shaitan who tries to get involved in each and every person's life to make us live miserably. If we can be more loving and compassionate and merciful towards each other, everybody collectively will be living a better life. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us this mercy and this love and this compassion that is required for us to be able to get closer to Him and to be more forgiving and loving. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa ala alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin.